had a guy one time say, what do you want? More money, more time off. This one guy gets around, he goes, I got to buy a house and I got to do it this year. I go, really? Why? Because she won't marry me unless we can buy this house. Boom. Overtime, Saturdays, Sundays, there's motivation. All human actions are made in response to either the pain or the pleasure. That's Henry Ford. If you think you can, you think you can't, you're right. It's just so stinking true.
Expert advice, practical tips, real-life stories. Have less stress, more time, and more money in your business. Welcome to the Cashflow Contractor.
Martin, we're talking about change today. Currently, it's beginning of May, and there's some change happening in, do you say the papacy, the Pope?
The Catholic Church.
The Catholic Church.
Yeah.
There's some change in the Catholic Church, and I have seen some of the funniest things. I will send this to our production team to be able to share with everybody so they can visualize this if you're on YouTube or Spotify. But there was a fire in Tuscaloosa, it's like a plant blew up in Alabama or something like that.
And they try to make white smoke or something?
Well, let me pull it up because it is that funny. But essentially, there's this cloud of smoke and they say, reports indicate that there's been some type of oil explosion at Hunt Oil in Tuscaloosa. So that's what it is. And it's this black cloud of smoke just going through, just up in the air. And someone said, black smoke from Tuscaloosa. No starting quarterback has been named. And then the one I saw this morning, if no pope is decided after 4 sessions, each cardinal alternates possession from the 25-yard line. After 2 more sessions, they have to go for 2-point conversions.
Oh, man. It is pretty cool. I was listening, I'm not Catholic, but somebody talking about the church has survived 2,000 years of every kind of attack. And I don't know anything else that has. I mean,
maybe even internal attacks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. As a matter of fact, you read about the politics in the in the Vatican make Washington D.C. look like a kiddie center.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be pretty rough. But
it's nuts. Yeah, and they have not control, but a contingency of $2 billion or something like that.
Dollars?
No, people in the
Oh, I was going to go.
Church.
$2 billion these days is like pocket change.
Yeah. No, 2 billion people.
Yeah.
2 billion souls, I guess you might say.
Yeah.
So,
pay attention to what they say.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Well, so change. We've done episodes on the change formula. We'll link to those if everyone's interested. Why don't we just start with the basic, what is the change formula?
Well, first I want to talk about change and whether or not we mind it. And like I've said before in this show, and I heard somebody said, I don't mind change as long as I don't have to do anything different.
Yeah.
So, no, having just welcomed some new, done an alignment with some new clients here in the last couple of days, one of the things I always talk about is the change formula. And I describe it as the most important thing we're going to talk about. And then I warned him, I said, I'll probably say some other things are most important too, but this one really is. And it is pain and pleasure, the pain that you're trying to get away from, the pleasure you're trying to get toward. It's called dissatisfaction, same as pain. Vision, your vision for the future is the award. Carrot and a stick. But anyway, there are things that you don't want, that you want to get away from. And there are things that you do want, that you want to get toward. One can be more powerful than the other, depending on you and your situation. They can be equally powerful. You can have one with nothing. I mean, it can be all pain you're wanting to get away from. Anyway, it can be any combination. But those two things, and we put a little multiplication sign in there because they compound one another. Those two things have to be greater than your resistance to change. Change involves work. Work has to have a reward until it becomes habit, right? But you have to learn you have to figure out how to do something differently. You have to change your habits to do something differently. You have to change your your customers, your employees, your family. You have to try to influence their habits so that they behave differently. And that is work. And if there is not sufficient reason to do it, you will not do it. They will not do it. Customers won't do it. All the days won't do it. So it's really, really important that we understand clearly why we're undertaking change. And in my case, where it's coaching, somebody calls me and wants to do something, I need to know, why did you call me? And that's really a pretty good question, because something impelled you to give me a call. That's why I like getting calls. I'm not scared to cold call, but it's kind of a waste of time. You got to have a reason. And if it's a powerful reason, as a lot of my clients are, it could be money. I mean, it can be all kinds of things. But if they're a powerful reason, I go, okay, here we go. Let's get specific. And another thing in the formula we could attack, but if you want to, is what are the reasons people resist change? Because that's important too. But that's important for my clients when we do an alignment, because if they don't have those motivating factors, they're not going to do anything we talk about. I've seen it many times.
Yeah.
If they don't really mean it. They might say it, but if they don't really mean it, they're not going to do anything.
Okay.
And
so let's just really clearly spell it out for everybody, and maybe our team will put the change formula on the screen for us. So say it for us really fast.
Okay. Dissatisfaction times your vision has to be greater than resistance to change, or there will be no change.
There we go.
And,
so dissatisfaction, and what you were saying is that dissatisfaction is the most powerful one.
I didn't say that, but it is.
Well, no,
that's one thing we're going to talk about.
That's what we were talking about before we jumped on.
Right.
Dissatisfaction is the most powerful one.
You will pay more attention to avoid immediate pain,
discomfort,
than you will to acquire immediate gain. And an example in an article I read is kind of a simple example, but if there's a lion attacking you and there's a bag of money over there, you're going to run away from the lion.
Yeah.
Worry about the money later. Now, I know some people that'll grab the money.
People do a great example of like, if I were to give you $10 million tomorrow, what would you do with it? And you tell all the things you do, and it's okay, great. And would you take the money? Absolutely. Okay, but what if I said that tomorrow's your last day on earth?
Right.
Like if you take the money, it's your last day on earth. Everyone's like, well, no. It's like, so why don't you treat every day as if it was worth $10 million? Why don't you go and approach every day like, with that same mindset? It's the same thing, like the dissatisfaction.
Yeah, and kind of the answer to that question is, I'm happy. I mean, there are people who are complacent. We're always talking about improving, getting better, more efficient, making more money to get, to achieve those goals with less stress, more free time, more. There are people who are perfectly happy right where they are.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Well, in some sense, I envy those people, because it's very challenging to, I don't know, maybe our listeners feel this, but when you're going all week and then you get to Sunday and you just want to, maybe the idea of rest sounds good, and then you sit down on the couch for a couple hours and you realize, oh, well, I could mow the grass, or, oh, I could, do this little project. And you're just always constantly going. And actually being content is a lot harder than, for at least probably most of the business owners out there that are ambitious. Being content with where you're at is really challenging. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't really know anybody I said there are people who are content, but I don't run around with them.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't bump into them.
Although it's important to stop and just think for a second, like, man, I've actually accomplished a lot. Or
one of my favorite things with people, and you've done it too, is to say, what are your sales? 3 million. How long have you been in business? 6 years. What would have been rock your socks sales beyond your imagination when you started business? 100,000. And you're doing 3 million now. Yeah. But that's not enough, man. I got to get to 10 million. So, being complacent, what you think, I like that. You have to give thanks for where you are, take some time off. It doesn't, but yeah. I mean,
There's a book
what's
that
the
came
point?
out. There's a book that came out by Andrew Wilkinson called Never Enough, from barista to billionaire. And he's a very fascinating guy. Really follows Warren Buffett pretty religiously, and obviously it's paid off.
Yeah.
But I've only read the first, the introduction, so I haven't actually gotten into the full book, but just the idea of it is when is actually enough, and none of this is actually going to make you happy, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, people who don't understand, I'm just going to say that, think that acquiring money and status and power is the purpose. And there are some people like that. I don't think for 2 nanoseconds that that's what motivates Elon Musk.
No.
I mean, getting to Mars. You think about all the stuff he's done, every one of those things is impossible. And he did them. And they do things and make it look so easy. You're just going, what the heck? Anyway.
You got to think big, right?
There's no way he's motivated by money. No way.
Quick ad break to tell you a little bit about OpenPhone. If you're a contractor that has a single cell phone, you're probably inundated with text messages and phone calls, oftentimes that you can't be responsive to or that you can't answer at all. So what's the solution? You can buy another office line with Verizon or AT&T, and you can have an iPhone that is passed around from employee to employee, depending on who's on call. But what if there's a better way? What if there's a way that you can have all your phone calls recorded to go back and listen to later, transcribed with summaries so that you can get a quick glance at what happened during the phone call, and even connect it to your CRM where all your other customer information is? OpenPhone is the perfect solution because it does just that. You're able to add all the users you need to for whoever needs to have access to the lines for your company phone. And then you can also find all of the information you need at a glance with a centralized location for all phone calls and text messages with your customers. Whether it's for marketing, for sales, or for service, OpenPhone is the perfect solution for you and your team. If you're interested, we have an offer down the show notes from OpenPhone. Please click the link down the show notes, or you can see it here on your screen to be able to find more information about OpenPhone. Thanks for listening. Back to the episode.
I think something to think about with this contentment, and we're kind of changing the conversation a little bit here, but if we apply the change formula to that, for me, for example, I've seen the concept of being a little bit slower, of being content with what I have and who I'm around, and the things that knowing that material items aren't going to make me satisfied in the long run. Money isn't the ultimate goal. There's other goals of having quality family time and all this kind of stuff, right? I would call that the vision, right? In the formula. And those things sound great, but they're actually really hard to get. And they take time, they take practice and habit and rhythm. But it's not until I can't sleep at night because I'm stressed out. It's not until I feel alone and stretched. It's not until I am dealing with these pains that I realize, man, I've got to change something. I've got to change the way my perspective on life. I've got to change the way that I'm waking up in the mornings, how I start my day, what time I go to bed at night. I got to start working out. I got to lose some weight. It's not until those pains where I feel the pain of that I actually make the change, like your change formula. So,
and that you hit on a really important thing there is we look at what are the causes for resistance. And I ask groups whenever I speak to people or new clients, I ask, what? I hear a lot of things.
Yeah.
But the two that stick most with me, people where they say, well, my resistance is I don't understand, or I don't know what to do and I don't have time, those kind of things. But the meaningful ones really come down to two things. People are scared of change. And when I ask them what they're scared of failure. And we can dive into that a little bit. What the likelihood of failure when you get up all day, every day, and put all your efforts into going to the right, what are the chances that you're going to go to the left? Well, you might, but you're doing it anyway. So fear of failure is one. And the second one I call inertia. I'm willing to change, but that's a lot of work, and I'm busy today, and I got to make this sale. I got these problems, and so I'm not going to change today, but I'm going to. I'll change tomorrow. And of course, we all know tomorrow never comes. Now, if you turn up the heat enough on the stove, there's a point where you go, I believe I'll change right now. And that's what we're talking about. You have to find those motivating things. And just something I read too, I want to backfill what we've been talking about is all human actions, and I think I agree with this, all human actions are made in response to either the pain or the pleasure.
Yeah.
You don't do anything that's not.
The way that my senior high school English teacher put it was every book that's ever been written, every play is either about sex or death, pain or pleasure. He literally said, Eddie, you tell me, give me any movie, I'll tell you how it's either about sex or death.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certain things people are interested in, right? So no, that is, I mean, I had a guy yesterday, I had a really early morning meeting and I walked out with an old friend from high school and he said, how'd you get into this coaching business and stuff? And I said, well, recited my history of some companies and sold them or they failed, one or two. Anyway, they've gone and thought I'd do this. And I said, I thought I knew a lot of stuff. Maybe I can help. And I told him, I said, turns out I do know a lot of stuff. But being a good coach was not among those things. It was 2 years of figuring out how do you, and by that time there were a couple of guys standing there and I said, you have to have a protocol, an approach, something to think about, something to check against. Am I doing this? This is something I can do. And this pain formula or this change formula is something you can do. What do I want less of? What do I want more of? And write them down. And if they're not motivating, that's not really the deal. There's something out there. I mean, I had a guy one time was speaking to a group of guys in blue shirts with their names over their pockets and saying, what do you want? And more money, more time off, all this. So one guy gets around and he goes, I got to buy a house and I got to do it this year. I go, really? Why? Because she won't marry me unless we can buy this house. Ooh. Boom. Overtime, Saturdays, Sundays, anything extra. There's motivation, right? And
that's really good.
As usual, came from a woman. So,
quick ad break to tell you about Growth Kits. This is actually my company, and you may have seen it around. But I started Growth Kits because I kept seeing contractors struggle with the same problems over and over again. They were trying to be better organized inside of their business, but kept drowning in the day-to-day operations. So whether you need a better CRM, a hiring process that actually works, or you just want to make sense of the tech stack inside of your business, we have systems that are built specifically for contractors. You can either grab our DIY guides and implement these systems yourself, or you can hire us to work with you on it and implement it for you. No massive consulting fees, no year-long commitments or monthly retainers. Just pick what you need right now and let's get it done together. Head over to growth-kits.com to see how we can help you construct your success one system at a time. That's growth-kits.com, or just click the link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
So you were telling me, I think it was 6 things or something like that to think about as it comes to change, about like how to have urgency in it. I'm going to butcher this. So why don't you go ahead and just share it? I know you found.
Well,
what was the
I
article?
don't know if I really get to 6 on it, but the idea that everything is done in response to pain and pleasure is something that you need to understand, because I'm going to go a little wide here, but just make the point. We're talking about the change formula governs whether or not you will change.
Right.
But it also governs whether or not your employees will change and your family will change and your kids will do things. But it's also the sales formula. If you're approaching a customer and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I got to make a sale, you're going to fail a lot and you're going to feel like crap.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I've got a guy out right now, and his coaching assignment is bring me 5 things the next person you talk to is unhappy about. Write them down and bring them to me, and bring me 5 things they want. And that means his effort in the sales call is going to be to fulfill that assignment, is to find 5 things that guy said he doesn't want. That's not always easy, but that's the assignment. 5 things he does want, bring that to me. So that's the sales formula. If you don't know those things, you're not going to sell them anything. Or if you do sell them, it'll be one of those deals where they get mad they bought it, right? So anyway, everybody responds to one of those 2 things. That's one of the things. The idea that we talked about early on is interesting. People will do more to avoid pain than they will to gather pleasure.
Okay.
That's a good thing to know, because when you're looking for the dissatisfaction times the vision, there's more power to the dissatisfaction.
Yeah, and I think that's really helpful, because I think at the end of the day, it's all framing it. It's all perspective, rather than setting your goals around a pleasure or something in the future, something that's hopeful. Reframe it to where it's actually like there's a dissatisfaction in the goal, right?
Yeah.
Like, get rid of this rather than attain this, right? I'm trying to think of an example, but like, instead of, hey, I want to get to, I want to double my revenue. You could set it as like, I got to get out of this shop.
Right.
Like, this shop is terrible. We've got to get out of this shop. And in order to do that, we have to double our revenue to be able to afford the next, higher square footage or whatever it is. So the pain is that we're crammed in this shop, and this shop is the problem. And if you frame it that way, then you can leverage the fact that dissatisfaction is greater than vision.
Right.
And so obviously you don't want to become a Scrooge and always
it's
be negative,
what
but
motivates you.
yeah, if you can use the motivation to your benefit.
Right. And that's kind of the second thing, or maybe I already said it. Perception is reality. In other words, the negative, it doesn't, man, I read a deal called, I can't remember. It's a book was in the Wall Street Journal, and a friend sent it to me. I haven't read the book, but I can't remember the name, but it's How to Live a Long, Healthy Life, right?
Okay.
And it really came down to 3 things. They did all these studies on medications and BMIs and all this stuff. But people who live a long time tend to be on the thinner side. And that doesn't mean thin, but they're not exceedingly heavy.
Yeah.
They're going to be over. There's nobody in the U.S. that's not overweight. If you look at, actually there are, but I've never met one. No, but you tend to be on the thinner side. The second thing is they tend to do some type of regular exercise. Okay. Doesn't say they kill themselves or anything like that. But the third, and I think one of the most powerful, is they tend to be optimistic. Okay. And I talk with my wife about this all the time. I'm a little bit of a scarcity mindset guy. I mean, I hate to admit that, but it's the truth. But I'm just kind of like, oh man, what if it doesn't work? Or man, what if they don't come in? Or what if so-and-so quit? Or what if I lose all my clients, right? And I have to pull myself out of that. And my wife is really good at it, because I might have said it before, but she goes, wham, 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 wham. If I'm going on. She does that. And I go, that's magnificent that she does that. My perception, you can change it in a nanosecond. Just change it. It's easy to say, and I don't know what the mechanisms are in the brain, if they're nerves that got to grow different directions or fuse together or whatever. But you can just go, I am not going to look at this and say this is a crappy day. I'm going to look at it going, man, I got another day. I'm going to call 4 people and somebody's going to buy from me.
I think the reality is that you can have an abundance mindset. It's much easier to have an abundance mindset with someone else than it is with yourself.
Yes, I do that every day, all day long.
You're coaching people, and
oh,
you're saying, you can do this, man. Like, this is great. And then
Yeah.
internally you're like, oh, I'm struggling. I can't make it.
Yeah.
It's way easier to be positive for somebody else than it is for yourself.
Yeah.
And a really good exercise for that is, what advice would you give if you were somebody else, if you were talking to yourself from
Yeah.
the outside, what advice would you give to yourself?
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
then you can approach that with the mindset.
Yeah. And I don't want to leave everybody with the perception that I'm bummed out all the time. But I
No,
tell you,
you're not.
but over the years with companies and things, there have been times that I'll give you an example. And this is almost embarrassing, but it's an example. We've helped start 8 companies, and you know my history.
Yeah.
2 of them failed, sold 4 of them, still have 2. There are investment opportunities that I had starting in the early 80s that I could have taken advantage of that would just stagger people today. And I didn't do them. I mean, I did some, but I didn't do what I could have done because I thought, because all my companies, I started them or reorganized them, were kind of I always thought, what if I don't get a paycheck next week? And I think I've talked about this on the podcast, or next month or whatever. So I better not oblige myself to keeping this house when I move. I better sell it. You know how many paychecks I missed over the last 51 years? That's right. He's 0.0. And that is tangible evidence, tangible results of having a negative mindset for a long time. And as I say, it's a little bit embarrassing. Hopefully it helps somebody, but it's embarrassing to admit that.
No,
But
it's
being
not
aware
embarrassing,
of it
it's
is one
reality.
way. Yeah, being aware that you're doing that yourself is one way that you overcome it. You can't overcome it if you deny that you're doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's recap the 6. So, or maybe
Yeah.
it's not 6, but then once we went
Yeah,
through.
it's
So
5.
I have pain is more influential than pleasure. Perception is
Right.
reality. There was one before that.
Oh, all decisions are made in response to pain or pleasure.
Oh, okay. Pain or pleasure is the first
Yeah.
thing. That's the first thing
Yeah.
we can know.
And
then
then
pleasure is
they'll do
okay.
more to avoid pain than they will to move toward pleasure.
Okay.
And I don't know if we said it specifically, but we've been talking about it. Perception is reality.
Yeah, we
Right?
said that. Yeah.
If that's Henry Ford. If you think you can, you think you can't. You're right. And
Yeah.
it's just so stinking true. Pain and pleasure are modulated by time, as the way one of the articles put it. And by that, I think what they're really talking about is, and this is pretty apparent, some near-term pleasure, some near-term pain are more powerful than the long-term, right? Even though everybody listening, their spouse and their kids all know that the way to prosperity is to delay gratification. Do what's hard now and make it easy later. Do what's easy now makes it hard later. But they'll still do it.
Yeah.
They'll still spend the money today rather than putting $100 away. And so it's something to be aware of. That's a real tough one.
It's, yeah.
Like I
urgency
said,
is-
everybody knows it. Everybody knows that you have to save. They don't do it. Well, a lot of people do. A lot don't.
Urgency is so powerful. Like, the best sales, like, are all about urgency. Hey, sale this weekend only.
Fear.
Yeah.
The
Fear.
urgency is fear.
Yeah. I'm going to miss out. Fear of missing out.
My,
Have you heard, there's FOMO, which is fear of missing out. There's FOBO, fear of better options.
Okay.
And then there's another, oh man, I'm going to miss this one. I'll get it by the end of the podcast.
Okay.
I'll think of it. But there's another one that's hilarious, but
Fear of screwing up.
FODA, fear of doing anything.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see a lot of FODA. I mean,
Yeah.
as a coach, that's
Well, that's literally what it is. I'll play out FOMO, FOBO, FODA really quick.
right.
It's
Right.
essentially what happens is I saw my competitors using this software and it's changing their business, right? I don't want to miss out on that. Like, I'm going to look into it. So then you start looking into it, and then you start thinking, well, man, this price is pretty high. Let me look at the other softwares that exist, right? And so you start looking at all the features, and you're like, man, but this price versus that price and the features. And so you have this fear of better options. You don't want to choose one because you think you're going to choose the wrong one because it's not going to be installed properly. It's going to be harder to implement, or it's not going to connect with this tool, or whatever it is. So then you have this fear of better options. So then you end up having this fear of doing anything, because if you do something, you might choose the wrong one. So that's FOMO, FOBO, FODA. Anyways.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. And that happens not just in choosing software for your business, but it literally happens in anything.
Anytime you choose to do something, you are consciously or not choosing to not do something else.
Exactly.
And there's a lot more something else's than there are some things, because you can do one thing and there are billions squared options that you could do. And so, but we've talked about in the past the characteristics of a great business owner, and one of them is make a damn decision.
Yeah.
Right. And
inaction is a decision.
If it turns out that it's not perfect, make another decision. Right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
absolutely.
I walked
over. Inaction is a decision as well. So, okay. So we said say it again, the preemptive one.
It's modulated by time is the way I described it.
Modulated by time.
Yeah.
But basically we have a bias to recency bias.
Yeah. To nearness. Yes.
Nearness.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Recency bias.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though we all know better. And
right.
really the last one is emotion trumps logic when you think about it. I mean, I spend a great deal of my time. What I do as a coach is help people find the one thing from the Fido is the dog, is gotta let the dog out. FODA is help say, no, we're not going to do nothing. You've got these problems. We're going to do this. And then they agree with it because we agree. And then I hold them accountable. Did you do it? I mean, I have to get so specific. We talk big picture in all our coaching sessions, but I have to get specific. Do this by next Thursday.
Yeah.
And that's where I hate the saying, but rubber meets the road. That's where it either happens or doesn't. The rest of it's just cocktail party talk. Yes, I'm sipping a martini and talking about all these great ideas I have. It's the one that you implement that makes the difference.
Well, and I think as we can do a future episode on this, but less is more, and having focus allows you to actually let the rubber meet the road.
Yeah.
When you start thinking in things of these grandiose efforts that are going to take time and effort and energy and all this capacity, it becomes unbearable, and it becomes really easy to not do anything. Right. Whereas if you can make it very specific, very clear, and put a timestamp on it, okay, let's just try it till this time. So.
Well, literally, that's the thesis. If you're not sufficiently motivated by something bad or something you want, you will not do it. You will not do it. That's just a fact.
So what's the takeaway? As someone's listening and they're thinking about this topic, what should they be walking away with?
It depends on who they're thinking about, whom they're thinking about. If they're thinking about themselves, then it's a good idea to write out and take the lid off, right? Well, I'm always going to have to live with this. Well, no, you're not. We want that gone. Or I could never do that. Well, yes, you can. We want to attain that. And where you really damn mean it, There's kind of a old saying, a guy's working on a skyscraper and a whistle blows and he walks out on an I-beam and sits down and opens up his toolbox and he goes, oh man, cheese sandwich again. His buddy's sitting next to him, he says, why don't you tell your wife to make something different? He said, I'm not married, I made it.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We're making cheese sandwich again. So the takeaway is figure out what motivates you negatively or positively. And then we start figuring out the steps. Once you know that, and I mean specifically, more money, our tagline, less stress, more money, more free time is great, but that's not enough. How much more money by when? I want to make $200,000. Yeah, and why? And you get specific, then we can work backwards from there. Well, to make that much money, we need this many customers, this outreach campaign process, and we do all these things. But these step-by-step things that you do to get better, if they're headed towards a purpose, a meaningful purpose, you can do them. If they're not, you're just not going to. You're going to backslide.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's a takeaway.
No, for sure. Change formula. Listen to the last episode if you want to. But I think we've covered it as well during this one. Takeaway, be very clear on what you want and where you're going. I think that's where it gets. And if it's not motivating you, find a way to change the perspective around it, because your perception is your reality. Yeah. Right? So
take the lid off.
Thanks, Martin.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is a helpful episode.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. See you around.
Okay. See ya.
You made it to the end of the episode, but before you go, if you found yourself thinking about growing your construction business while listening today, I want to share something with you. It's called our 24 Things to Hiring and Training the Perfect Executive Assistant for Your Construction Business. And it's a free guide that we've created. It's not theory. It's what we actually use to help contractors hire the perfect executive assistant. And really, we help you find ways to delegate over 50% of your current workload and get back 20 hours of your time every single week. You didn't start your construction business to just be doing admin work, to be buried in paperwork and endless admin tasks. This is the guide that shows you exactly how to find and train someone who can actually take all that weight off of your shoulders. So this is a real actionable, great PDF that has templates and processes. It's really, really great. And I want you to check it out, even just to get your feedback and how we can make it even more valuable. But I know that you're going to love it. The link is in the show notes. Please download it. We'd love to see how much of an impact it makes on you and your business. Thanks for listening to the full episode. Check out the guide. It's free. No reason to hesitate. No reason to wait. Download it now. And before you go, I just want to ask for your gracious subscription to our podcast. So if you have 2 seconds, it means the world to us. Just subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or if you'd like our weekly newsletter delivered to your inbox whenever we release an episode, please subscribe in the show notes. Every week, we're talking about real strategies on how you can grow and build a profitable construction business that runs without you, so you can have less stress, more time, and more money. Click subscribe wherever you listen to the show, and thank you again for checking out the Cashflow Contractor. See you on the next episode.